Right now on KCCI 8 Close-Up, Corrections Director Beth Skinner. We talk with Iowa's new prison chief about her vision for the agency and her efforts to reduce recidivism. KCCI 8 News Close-Up starts right now.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close-Up.
And good morning. Welcome to KCCI 8 News Close-Up. In June, Governor Kim Reynolds appointed Beth Skinner as the new director of the Iowa Department of Corrections. And Skinner began her career with the agency as an intern in 2002 and is now the second woman to lead Iowa's prison system in the past 3 decades. She joins us now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell us about your agency.
So we have 9 prisons and we have 8 judicial districts. Our population of prisons, so the 9 prisons, we have about 8,500 people incarcerated. In the judicial districts, the 8 judicial districts, we have probation, parole, and residential. That population is about 38,000.
Okay, and you started as an intern.
Yep.
What led you to want to keep a career and your career in this path?
Well, I've always wanted to work in law enforcement, and I was actually taking classes at the University of Iowa, and a social work class that said you had to take an internship to pass the class. So I took an internship with probation and parole, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the balance of treatment and accountability. I loved the work. I worked extra hours because I really enjoyed it. And then I got hired on as a residential officer. And so I started my career as an intern, and then I moved into a full-time position as a residential officer. And I just fell in love with it and never turned back.
So it sounds like you find it very rewarding.
Very rewarding.
What is it about it that is rewarding for you?
I think I like it for me is because you get to work with the best staff in the country. Some of the best people are my colleagues, my teammates, and the staff. I also like the chance to help people make change. I believe people deserve second chances, and it's an opportunity to kind of infuse social work in with, for me, what was law enforcement, which that's where I was going initially, and to be able to make and affect change for people and give people second chances.
So then you obviously are new into this position, but I'm sure you have quite the vision. What do you envision for the agency, and what things would you like to enact moving forward?
I think what's really important is kind of starting first with why we're doing what we're doing. Is coming back to that why. I think it's really important, I think, as my job as director, which I'm going to spend the next few months traveling around the state, meeting with staff coming onto their shifts, talking about the why, what we do, which is creating opportunities for safer communities. That's really important, is we have to get back to the basics and say, why are we in this business to begin with? To instill that, inspire people, to impassion them again to get back to really why we're doing the work. And I think that's important to have those discussions and talk about how your work, whether you're a correctional officer or a counselor or a treatment director, fits into the larger agency mission of public safety. And
remembering, kind of like you just said, that you're working with people. And you also said a very human thing, people deserve second chances.
Absolutely.
Would you say, could you ballpark a percentage, is it 90% of the people you see, 80%, 50%, you see there is a chance for them to kind of turn their lives around and be contributing members of society?
I believe people can change. I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't think people could change. I think people's pathways are different in terms of what we know through the research. There's certain factors that makes them more likely to engage in crime and recidivism. We need to address those factors, right? So when people come into our system, it's our responsibility to address those factors through treatment. But knowing that people can change, and the research tells us that people can change as well when you give them the right dosage, the right treatment, and also that you believe in them and give them hope that they can change as well. And I think that's a really important piece as well.
We're going to talk more about treatment, and I want to get into that in a little bit. But first, I do want to ask you, what sort of challenges would you say the agency faces right now?
I think, right now, the big thing is we have to really build our program capacity. We know that I can share with you the top 3 needs of our population is problem solving, impulse control, and substance abuse. What we need to do is be more directed, more strategic and directed with our resources, and build more program capacity to meet the needs of the population. Because what we don't want to do, which we know the literature tells us not to do, is we don't want to warehouse people, whether it's in the prison or in the community-based corrections. We need to get people's treatment to address those factors that cause them to engage in criminal behavior.
And this is criminal behavior that you believe maybe have been exposed to early in life. I mean, life leads them to that wrong decision or a whole series of bad decisions to the one that then led them to be incarcerated.
There's a lot of things that go into, it's really not just one factor that makes someone risky. It's a multitude of factors, and the literature is very clear. There's like 8 factors that makes them a higher risk. So the more factors you have, the higher risk you are to engage in crime. So antisocial thinking, antisocial peers, substance abuse, poor leisure activities, poor performance at school and work. So it's not just one. You can not have a job. You can not have a job and you won't be criminal, won't engage in criminal behavior, but if you have antisocial attitudes, antisocial peers, you don't have a job, you have poor leisure, these things in the aggregate add up to someone being more at higher risk to reoffend.
And we can look at those indicators and red flags, and we're going to talk more about that. And our conversation is going to continue with Beth Skinner, the Department of Corrections Director, when we come back. Welcome back to Close Up. We're continuing our conversation with Department of Corrections Director Beth Skinner. She was appointed head of the agency in June by Governor Kim Reynolds. Now, prior to becoming director, you led recidivism reduction efforts. Correct. Where do we stand as a state compared to other states?
Okay, now that's kind of a complex answer. And let me tell you why. Our recidivism is 37.8%. Okay. Now the issue is that there's no national standard in terms of how you measure recidivism. How we measure recidivism is we do a 3-year cohort. So if they leave in, say, FY15, we follow them out 3 years. And if they get reincarcerated within those 3 years, that counts as recidivism for a new conviction or a revocation. Now, to be comparable against other states, it's very challenging because some states measure after 1 year, after 2 years. They measure by rearrest, reconviction, so it's not really apples to apples.
Got it.
However, if we look at states that measure similar to us, we do fairly well. And there's a few states around us that measure recidivism the same way we do.
And so that brings us back to something you had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to get back to just treatment and the programs that are available to help these inmates gain new skills and re-enter society. Can you touch on or highlight some of those for us?
Some of the programs I'd love to highlight is, first of all, we just had our Homes for Iowa, which is the new program that's out at Newton Correctional Facility. The governor came out and Lieutenant Governor and supported it. We broke some nails or hit some nails. That's going to be a really exciting program because it really has a multiple, like twofold kind of benefit. One is giving individuals that are incarcerated skills when they get out into the community. When 90% are going to get out into the community, gives them skills. Those skills that are needed. Even though our employment rate's so low, there's still a huge need for that skilled workforce. So we're giving them skills, right? So they get out and get jobs, as well as it's providing homes in Iowa that are more affordable. So it's really a win-win. It's a win for those individuals that are working on in those programs, and it's a win-win for Iowa communities when we're going to have more affordable housing available. That's one program we're very proud of. We also have our apprenticeship programs. We have about 26 different apprenticeship programs. We currently have about 300 people enrolled. We have had over 200 completions. And we think that's really something that we're really excited about because we're going to expand that program to probably 50 different types of occupations because we know these individuals need to have these kind of hard skills when they get out. We know there's a need out in the communities for this type of work. So we're really proud of the work around apprenticeship programs. The last thing I may want to highlight is the Pell Grant program that we're doing. We're trying to provide more education secondary education. In 6 of our 9 institutions, we're going to have Pell Grant programs. So what this is really doing when we're talking about like employment and building those skills in education is building human and social capital. What we know in the literature is that there's pathways to desistance. We know if people are more tied to society, more tied to jobs, more pro-social individuals, they're less likely to engage in crime. So through these apprenticeship programs and building their education, we're building human and social capital with them. So when they get out, they get jobs, they get tied to the community, they get tied to mentors and pro-social support. So it's really, really important to have those types of programs. And of course, we have cognitive behavior programs and things like that, but those are kind of the really highlight programs I wanted to share with you.
And so that leads me to the question of, you hear it, maybe this is Hollywood, but you know, I've got a record. It's hard when I've got a record. No one will hire me, no one will look at me, tough to find housing. There is a stigma associated with inmates and as they try to re-enter society. Can you talk about that stigma and how you sort of you're working past it, trying to at least?
Yeah. One thing I will say, when I worked in the residential facility, and I used to hear employers say over and over, some of my best workers were those on supervision because they showed up for their jobs and things like that, and they really, really wanted to change and make a difference. I think that's, you know, an important piece. But I just think that, you know, getting them jobs, it's just critically important to their success.
So reminding employers the positives that can be there with a person.
Right, and I think what's also a really important piece of that as well is there's education that goes along with that. And letting, you know, there's stereotypes that go along with people that have criminal records. I think there's also a big education piece that not only corrections should do, but, you know, people in the field should know that these people they want to change, they want to reintegrate and take care of their family, that there's, like I said, an education piece that goes along with that as well.
And so what is the future of the agency moving forward? I know you've just been in place since June, but you sound so eager. What's
I'm very
next?
eager.
What does the future hold?
The future holds, in the next few months, we're going to spend a lot of time talking with staff, and we're going to talk about the why of our work. I think that's really important. I think people, again, what I mentioned earlier, is getting down to the basics. Basically saying, why am I here? Why am I doing this? How does that fit into the larger picture of what we're trying to accomplish as a department? Other things I want to focus on is I want to focus on building treatment and program capacity. We don't want to warehouse people. We want to make sure that the people that we're under our supervision are getting the treatment that they need. We're using an actuarial risk assessment, identifying those specific needs, and ensuring that we're giving them treatment to reduce their risk. Those things are going to be a very high priority. And again, this one thing that's really important to me is that our system sees each other as a team. We have 9 institutions and 8 judicial districts, but I think it's really important we see each other as a system that works closely together, and we can't do it alone. We have to have our partners. We have to have other government agencies, other state and local agencies. It really takes a village in order to get people out and get them the wraparound services and help them be successful.
It takes a village.
Yes, it does.
Beth Skinner, can't thank you enough for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
KCCI 8 News Close Up.
We've been in this legal community here in Iowa
Welcome back to Close Up. More than 20 presidential hopefuls visited the Iowa State Fair this year, where they shook hands and took the stage at the Des Moines Register political soapbox. KCCI senior reporter Todd Magel talked with voters at the fair, and they say it's the perfect place to meet the candidates.
Iowa, you all don't know how good you have it, but you have like this responsibility that you take very, very seriously, and I love you for it.
Candidate Andrew Yang drew a big crowd of voters and media on the State Fair soapbox. So did Julian Castro, Joe Biden, Steve Bullock, and the rest of the field. And fairgoers we talked to love the up-close and personal experience.
It's really great to be part of the First in the Nation caucuses.
They just need to get out in the world and see and talk to regular people.
Well, my summer goal is to at least see all the presidential candidates, both Democrat and Republican, so the fair is perfect time for that.
Ray Keebles came to listen to Julian Castro.
Why is it important? I don't know, to get their message across to these people. Not everybody is watching, but he has a good message to get across. He was good.
Jane Billard came all the way from Louisiana to see all the candidates.
It really shows their human side. You really get to feel for them more than just seeing them on TV and how TV wants to present them, and you really see them as a person and how they react to other people.
And Anna Molenbeek says Iowans don't know how lucky they are.
It's lucky to be here because this has been my normal life, is coming to the fair and seeing all these candidates, and you kind of take it for granted if you don't take advantage of it.
On January 20th, 2021, we will say adios to Donald Trump. Thank you.
In South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg was among the candidates who visited the fair this year. Buttigieg met with potential voters and even agreed to ride the giant slide. There he goes. He also talked one-on-one with KCCI's Chris Gothner about his new plan for economic development in rural communities.
You just unveiled your plan for rural America. Give us some of the highlights of that.
So it's really about making sure that our rural communities can grow. That's creating more jobs through things like rural innovation centers sponsored by the federal government but built out of our communities. It means making sure that we're doing more about monopoly practices that are squeezing farmers in rural communities. It means doing a better job of getting the internet out to different communities with an $80 billion plan to bring broadband to every part of this country. And we've also got to work on population growth, which is why I've proposed a community renewal visa where communities can apply for opportunities to have more people from abroad stay in their communities and contribute to the economy, if that's something the community would like.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little about plans for rural hospitals, too.
Well, this is really important because you can't live in a community that isn't supporting you medically. It's why we've unveiled a rural health plan that looks at everything from making the most of technology to help supplement in-person care to making sure that we use the full power of Medicare and Medicaid to support local rural hospitals where they are. Things like creating new designations that create more flexibility for outpatient and inpatient services. We need to make sure that we have adequate health care available in every part of every state, or we're going to continue to see a lot of our communities shrink, and it threatens the way of life that's so important in our small towns and rural counties.
You recently talked about a toxic brew, quote unquote, or the ready availability of guns, as well as the rise of hate. You've laid out specific gun control proposals, but how, as president, would you stem the rise of hatred in this country?
Well, as president, I would invest $1 billion in the Homeland Security Department's programs for countering violent extremism. The amount that's set aside for that right now has actually been cut by the Trump administration at the very moment when we're realizing how much of a security threat these extremist groups represent. If this were coming from overseas, we would be moving mountains to stop it. We need to do the same when it's homegrown terrorism as well.
You recently said systemic racism was a, quote, white problem. Now, of course, your home city of South Bend has experienced its own racial tensions, especially with regard to the police force. As mayor, what lessons have you learned in the aftermath of that police-involved shooting?
Well, what we've seen is how it really does feel like two communities or two countries for people with different racial experiences. And we need to make this a country where your race has no bearing on your life expectancy or your health or your wealth or your relationship with law enforcement. The reality is, I think a lot of my fellow white Americans are not as aware as they need to be about just how constant and just how ugly racial discrimination is in our society. If we don't tackle that, and that means making sure that white America, as well as diverse audiences, really dig in on this issue, it's going to continue to undermine national unity and national well-being, and I think could really drag our country down.
As you know, police-community relations are something that's definitely done on more of a local level. So many different police departments in this country. What can be done on a federal level about that?
Well, if we can have real criminal justice reform, I think it will go a long way toward improving relationships between law enforcement and communities of color. We are the most incarcerated country in the world, and there are a lot of racial disparities in who experiences that incarceration. I believe we can cut incarceration by half, and we will not have an increase in crime. How do we know that? Because there are a lot of countries with less incarceration and less crime. We've got to do it in a way that looks toward equity as well as toward safety and brings those things together. Look, it should be possible to be enthusiastically pro-law enforcement and pro-racial justice. Those things shouldn't be in tension, but they are right now because of the experiences that so many people have had in their interactions with law enforcement and with the system overall that's currently just not delivering justice for everyone.
You've unveiled your Douglas plan to address racial inequality, but can policies alone address the problem?
Well, I think policy is part of it, but what we're seeing right now is leadership is a big part of it. Right now we have a president who openly spreads a lot of racist rhetoric and stirs people up against one another at a moment when we've got to find national unity. We should be nationally united around things like fighting racism. This president's led us in the wrong direction, and it's not just a question of policy. I care a great deal about the policies we need to implement in order to deliver economic and other forms of racial justice, but it's also a matter of setting the right tone and establishing that hate has no hold in this country.
We will be back with the final part of Chris's one-on-one interview with presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg. Stay with us. Welcome back to KCCI 8 News Close-Up. We continue now with the final part of Chris Gothner's interview with South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg at the Iowa State Fair.
How would you work, let's say in 2020 comes around, you win the presidency, but Republicans maintain control of the Senate. How would you work with Mitch McConnell to ensure that all of your proposals get through?
Well, what I've learned is that Republican senators no longer speak for Republican voters. Consider universal background checks, a common sense gun safety measure that most Americans, including most Republicans, want. But at least up until now, Senator McConnell has been blocking that. It's one of many examples on things from raising wages to preserving health care, where even most Republicans disagree with their own elected officials. As president, I will remind voters of whether their senators are truly speaking to them or not. And I believe we can get our policy agenda through no matter who's in control of the Senate, although I very much prefer to win the Senate. And that's one of the reasons why I think as a nominee, I have the coattails necessary for the middle of the country to help make sure that we have a favorable outcome, not just in the White House, but in the Senate and House too.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard for President Obama to get the Affordable Care Act through the Senate, even with the Democratic majority. Do you think even if there is a Democratic majority, there might be issues?
Well, the other side of the coin is that, a Republican majority was unable to dismantle the Affordable Care Act because it turns out it's a good policy and Americans like it. If what we're doing makes people better off in the everyday, then we're always going to be on the front foot politically. You just got to remember that. I think Democrats have been in a defensive crouch for too long, but right now our policies are popular. This president is unpopular, and we need to make sure we advance policies that are going to make people better off in their everyday life, but with a different sense of urgency than we've done in the past. And part of why I'm running for president is we can't just repeat the same arguments. We have to actually do something.
President Trump, the trade war continues to ratchet up with China. What's the first thing you would do in office when it comes to China?
Well, the first thing I would do is invest in our own domestic competitiveness. That's the way to get ahead of China. Poking them in the eye with tariffs is just going to lead to more tariffs and more economic pain for the American people. If we really want to be out competing China, we need to have the right kind of infrastructure and education here at home because they're investing in their own country and we're not doing the same thing here in the same way.
Even if we reverse course on China after the 2020 election, how long do you think it would take to rebuild those markets we've lost due to the trade war?
Look, there are some agricultural markets that we may have lost for a generation. I'm worried about soy, I'm worried about pork. And, this is something that we can't afford to let each passing day get worse. I do worry that we're going to hit a point of no return, and the next president's going to have a lot of work to do undoing the damage from the Trump administration's trade and ag policies.
So what are you learning from Iowans here at the fair?
Well, what's on folks' minds is the same as I think what you hear around the country. People want to know that they're going to have health care, that the economy is going to be okay, that we're going to find a way to bring people together when this division is really endangering the very core of the fabric of our society. And also I'm learning just how nice and friendly people are here in Iowa. They're encouraging me to try all the different fair foods, and we're having a great time getting to know people as we go.
Sure, getting ready for the fall debates too, I'm sure.
That's right, yeah, September's not that far off. We're getting ready to continue delivering our message of urgent change in our economy and our political system. And we're going to keep spreading that message all the way until the caucuses and beyond.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your time.
Great being with you. Appreciate it.
The fair, a busy time for candidates, and even Late Show host Stephen Colbert got in on the political fun at the Iowa State Fair this year. Colbert sent a fake presidential candidate named Gregory Whiteman, who is played by sketch comedian Brian Stack. Here he is. He had a little fun with fairgoers, tried to trick them a little bit, if you will. During a segment on The Late Show last week, Whiteman met with several real candidates, flipped pork chops, and even went down the giant slide. The joke is that the most people just did not know he wasn't the real thing, but they all had a little fun with Todd Magel when he told them that he was faking it. That's all for this edition of KCCI 8 News Close Up. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday. We hope to see you right back here next Sunday.